we'll jump over to NFL. Our first time talking about NFL because free agency opened today,
Yes.
and wow,
And everyone got signed immediately.
They did not wait around. I mean, we had news last night of teams that were gonna sign certain players.
No Scott Boras in the NFL.
No, not at all. I mean, they did the opposite of MLB. So I guess we'll hit with Russell Wilson getting paid veteran minimum, which is $1.2 million with the Steelers. How do you feel?
I'm whelmed. Like, Kenny Pickett, I think it's very clear, is not the answer. If you get 70% of Seattle Russell Wilson, I think this is a good move. But also, for veteran minimum, why not at this point? Like, are you really going to get anything better at your draft position? I don't think so. I don't know that they're in a spot where they can really afford to trade up right now for like a Drake May or a JJ McCarthy, a Jaden Daniels. So I think this was just about the best they could have done, and I'm just worried that the Arthur Smith system is not conducive to especially Russell Wilson with how much Smith values throwing over the middle of the field. Russell Wilson has more been kind of a check down outside guy, doesn't necessarily have the arm strength anymore at this point in his career to really push the ball down the field over the middle of the field. So
Unless he's still in the Russell ball, his off-brand
yeah,
Nerf ball that's putting kids in the hospital. He had an off-brand Nerf ball that was so hard it would put kids in the hospital, and it was like this big around and like this short. I'll put a picture up, but
it was dangerous.
Yeah, it was terrible, is what it was. Um, but yeah, then Kirk Cousins is in Atlanta.
Yes.
4 years, 180 million. I mean, that's that's a weird move for Atlanta. But
I love this fit.
Yeah,
I love this fit so much. This offense now, you have Bijan Robinson, who is an elite receiving threat out of the backfield and an elite running back. Drake London is one of the better pure physical possession receivers in the league. Think Michael Pittman Jr., think Mike Evans, that kind of a guy. That's the level that Drake London, I think, can be on. You might actually be able to use Kyle Pitts now, who's such a dynamic threat. And then I would say with your 8th overall pick, you take Dallas Turner or an edge rusher. But then in the second round, if you could pick up a Troy Franklin or a Xavier Worthy and get some deep speed on this team, suddenly this offense becomes very, very fun and very, very dangerous. And I think this is a move that has really put Atlanta in the driver's seat for the NFC South.
No, I mean I agree. That division's been terrible the last few years, so this is a move that probably puts them at the top of that division. You have Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's also in that division. They signed Baker Mayfield again today.
Yeah, good move I think for them. That's the best they're going to do at the quarterback position, and he was definitely serviceable for them last year. Really got them a lot farther than I think most people expected them to go. So I guess don't count out Tampa this year either.
I have to see if Baker Mayfield can sustain what he did last year because we've seen a lot of inconsistency in his career. So 3 years, 100 million. I don't want to say they overpaid for him.
I don't think they overpaid.
I just want to see some more consistency and see if he can come back and do what he did last year. Probably in a tougher division because of Kirk Cousins now with Atlanta. So probably those two teams, and then New Orleans is always a decent wild card. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, they're just so hamstrung by that Derek Carr contract right now that I think they've put themselves in purgatory for a few years. But I'll be super curious to watch Baker this year finally with some continuity. That's one thing he's never had in his career, shifting coaches, shifting offensive coordinators, getting shipped between teams mid-season. So now to have a same staff coming back, and then his number one receiver is back too as they extended Mike Evans for 2 more years, $52 million. Another great move for them. Bucks legend, gets 1,000 yards every season. So I think, especially with the retainment of Baker, that's a very good move to keep one of your reliable weapons in town.
I agree, but the thing I'm most excited for this offseason, as far as free agency goes, is the running back class. I mean, a stacked free agent running back class, veterans, younger guys. I mean, just all around elite running backs. And I'm most excited to see how this will pan out. And I think 70% of it has panned out today. So I mean, we'll start with Saquon Barkley to the Eagles. 3 years, $375 million. I mean,
37.75.
Oh yeah, that's $37 million.
He's not a quarterback.
No, but the Eagles they didn't re-sign DeAndre Swift. He went to the Bears.
Yeah.
So Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia. I like this move.
He's strong enough to push Jalen Hurts, and that's what matters.
That is what matters because now they don't have the center that they had last year, Jason Kelce. So they need a big pusher. But I like this move a lot for the Eagles. I mean,
if he can stay healthy, he's a top 5 running back in the league.
Right, and with that offensive lineman, even without
Uh-huh.
Jason Kelsey,
Like you still have Cam Jurgens to play center, who you drafted for that spot. So I don't think this offensive line is in too much trouble. You still have Jordan Mailata out there at left tackle. Landon Dickerson is a good guard, and then Lane Johnson is still going to be a pillar on that right side. So I don't think they're in too much trouble right now.
no, I mean you saw what DeAndre Swift can do. He had a few games where he was the star of the night and just went off. And you put Saquon in that seat, you're looking at double the stats, double the yardage. So
Yeah, I will say pour one out for Giants fans though. That was
going to division
a lot
rival.
of Giants fans' favorite player on that team, and then going to the Eagles, who might be, well, they probably hate the Cowboys more, but the Eagles are right there for
Mm,
most hated team for Giants fans. So if you have a Giants fan friend, pray for them, console them. They will need it.
nah, not the Giants. But DeAndre Swift went to the Bears for 3 years. I mean, I'm not the type of person to say the Bears are back because I'm just never going to say that because I have to see that for it to happen. But a lot of people are talking the Bears are back, but they're all mostly Bears fans. Um, but so I guess the bigger question for Chicago, which we can talk about, is who's their quarterback?
Well, it's interesting because the trade market for Justin Fields has apparently been a lot worse than they anticipated. These teams don't want to pay the price that Chicago is asking for Fields, and now it looks like the most likely scenario might be you have a QB battle between him and Caleb Williams in the fall, which would be very interesting. And I just the Bears are in such a weird spot right now with having the number one overall pick. Surely you have to take Caleb Williams there. You can't pass up a prospect like that.
I
But
agree.
then what do you do with Justin Fields? It's just so interesting. But I will say, to the Bears' credit, I like what they've been doing in free agency over the last couple of years, picking up Terrell Edmonds or Tremaine Edmonds last year to play
Mhm.
inside linebacker. Now this year, getting DeAndre Swift, Kevin Byard on a short, fairly cheap deal. He's a little bit past his prime, but he's definitely better than Eddie Jackson, who you had back there beforehand, who has fallen off a cliff recently. So I like the signings that the Bears have made recently. I think their GM is being pretty savvy here. So right now, all that's really left to figure out is the Justin Fields contract. But my favorite thing they've done is this Jalen Johnson extension. 4 years, $76 million for one of the league's premier corners. He has great eyes in zone coverage, great instincts. This is a CB1 player for a franchise. Any team would be happy to have this guy, and I think he doesn't get the love he deserves because he plays for Chicago. He doesn't get that much exposure, but make no mistake, Jalen Johnson is a very, very, very good corner, and this is a very important deal for Chicago to get done.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt the front office has made the moves necessary for this team to succeed. We'll just have to see, obviously, come the draft, and they are going to draft Caleb Williams. I feel like, and just see how that kind of turns itself out come the season. And I think Caleb Williams probably takes the first snap for them
Yeah.
over Justin Fields, and we'll see just how it goes. They'll keep him
No,
around.
Tyson Bagent.
No, but they'll keep him around, and if Caleb Williams struggles, they'll put Fields in with this newer offense and see what happens. But I do like the Andre Swift signing to the Bears. Josh Jacobs is another guy who's got signed today. Green Bay. Not a lot of details on the contract as of now.
No. They did cut Aaron Jones immediately, though.
Yeah.
As soon as they got Josh Jacobs, they opened the door for Jones and practically kicked him out of it. So a team to watch for Aaron Jones, I would say, would be the Cowboys. I'd be very interested to see if they go after him, especially with Tony Pollard now gone, which we'll talk about in a second. I think that opening, especially after what Aaron Jones did to the Cowboys this past season, I think Jerry Jones will have his eye on Aaron Jones, and I like that fit a lot. And I also love the fit of Josh Jacobs in Green Bay.
I love it.
I don't know about you, but to me, it just feels like a Packer.
He does, and I'm just really excited to watch him play for the Packers. I think he's going to do way better because the Raiders have been. I mean, they were a mess for the last as
Mm.
pretty much the whole his whole career there. I mean, head coach got fired. They moved to Las Vegas. I mean,
He's gonna have so
it's
much
been
more support from his passing game in Green Bay too than he ever
mm,
has in Vegas with Jordan Love and that up and coming receiver core. Then I know they released David Bakhtiari, but the rest of this offensive line is not bad. Elton Jenkins is a good player. Zach Tom is a young, good player. So I think there are definitely pieces on this offensive line to help out for sure. But I like this move a lot for Green Bay.
no. I agree. It's probably one of my favorite moves of the short free agency season we've had so far. You mentioned Tony Pollard. He's with Tennessee now. Um,
RB2 to Tyjae Spears. Anyone? It's
but who does Dallas get? They let Tony Pollard walk.
They get Aaron Jones. That's who they get. I love that fit.
I think Aaron Jones may be the pick they have to go with because of their cap space, which is almost none. But
Or they could just draft Jonathan Brooks, keep him in state in Texas, from Texas. I know he's coming off an ACL tear, but he is an elite prospect. I would not hate that pick.
you would think the Dallas Cowboys would want to get a bigger name. I just don't see their cap space allowing it. People I've heard like wanting Derrick Henry, but I don't.
No.
But then again, there's a lot of people I don't see fit at Dallas that are still there. Jerry Jones, I don't see him fitting there. Dak Prescott needs to be gone. He's still there. We can talk about this later when it gets closer to the
Still
NFL
think-
season.
I think Dak is still a top 12 NFL QB at this point.
Top 12, but the Cowboys don't need to be top 12. They should be top 3. They're the Dallas Cowboys, you know?
It'd be okay if the Cowboys were mid for eternity.
I mean, I would too. I mean, trust me, I would love if the Cowboys just like did exactly what they did last year. But we can't. I don't want to. I don't want to wish that on people, but I do. But yeah, so we have Derrick Henry still waiting to sign. Austin Eckler is another big running back waiting
I'm
to sign.
so glad he's not going to be on the Chargers anymore. The dude's top speed is -3 miles per hour. He looks dead running out there, and then he's such a diva off the field as well. Impossible to deal with. Started that whole like running back rights movement or whatever last season, and then proceeded to be hurt all year, and then even when healthy was bad. So whatever team that signs him, I'm sorry in advance. I'm just glad he's not a Charger anymore.
Yeah, so we'll have to see where Henry and Eckler shape up. There's a few other guys, AJ Dillon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So just we'll hopefully by next week we'll have some more answers for that. But I could see Aaron Jones to the Cowboys. Wide receivers, T. Higgins, Pittman.
Yeah.
We've talked about Mike Evans. They both signed, re-signed, franchise tagged, or re-signed with their existing team.
Yeah.
So not a whole lot of shakeups.
Michael Pittman with a 3-year, $70 million deal to stay at Indy. This is a guy that you needed to secure for Anthony Richardson. This is your big go up and get a guy, receiver one. Very, very good player. I think this past year really had a breakout year, and considering his quarterback was Gardner Minshew for a lot of this season, I think that's impressive. So, good contract for Indy. I love that they were able to keep him around. Then T. Higgins franchise tag, but then did request a trade almost immediately after. So this could be a very likely tag and trade scenario. And for me, I don't understand why that's not a guy you don't just re-sign. I get that the cap exists, but also the Saints have proved that the cap is kind of a social construct in some ways. So I feel like if you really wanted to get a deal done, you could have. Apparently, the Bengals have not reached out for contract talks since March of last year. So if that really is the case, I think that's a bit of organizational malpractice to not secure a guy like T. Higgins, especially when you know you have this Joe Burrow contract about to trigger that's going to absolutely kill your cap. So I don't know what they plan on doing. Tyler Boyd's not going to be around forever. Jamar Chase is great, but you need more than one receiver. So
Yeah,
you don't know what they're going to
when
do.
his contract hits, it's going to be
Even more expensive.
yeah. So I'm not sure what their plan is, but if T. Higgins isn't there for this year, it would not shock anybody.
Yeah, a receiver move I do love though is Jerry
Gabe
Jeudy.
Uh,
I hate the give me. I'll talk about the Gabe Davis move in a second, but Jerry Jeudy to Cleveland for a 4th and 6th round pick this year. This is a guy who I think still has very high upside as a route runner, is a good technician, and I think is a very interesting complement to Amari Cooper. It's just, can Deshaun Watson find his Houston form? Because the current Deshaun Watson we've got is just flat out not good at football. And I don't think you can expect another Joe Flacco Linsanity run anytime soon. So while I do love this pickup for the Browns, I think it's a very savvy risk to take. I just don't know if they'll have the quarterback for it to work out.
yeah, I think if you pair a talent like Jerry Jeudy with a top level quarterback, you're going to see some insane highlight reels from the two of them. I mean, Jerry Jeudy has this stuff. Obviously, he was in Denver, so we'll just kind of ignore that whole stint and we'll kind of judge him differently. But Gabe Davis, you don't like the Gabe Davis in Jacksonville?
No, Gabe Davis is a fantasy football merchant that is a decent deep threat that makes a couple splash plays a game. The world has somehow been fooled into thinking that Gabe Davis is a good all-around wide receiver, which he is not. He does not have a complex route tree. His hands are okay. He is excellent at winning down the field and making 1 or 2 catches per game. That's why you'll put up 40 fantasy points 1 week. But you know what he does the next week? He does absolutely
That's why
nothing.
that is true. I was getting
Just so hot and cold. He
Yeah.
will do nothing so many times. And for a team like Jacksonville, who already has so much money committed to receivers, that Christian Kirk contract is still there. And then to go out and do this, I don't understand it at all. I feel like there are so many better ways to spend that money with the state of your offensive line, the state of your secondary, the back end of your secondary. I don't understand this move at all. If you want a receiver that badly too, get a different one. Go trade for T. Higgins or something.
What about Calvin Ridley, a receiver they had? Why not just re-sign him?
I don't know how much longer Calvin Ridley is gonna. Apparently, the talks between those two sides have not been going well, and it was initially expected that Calvin Ridley would be released following the signing of Gabe Davis, but then he hasn't been released, so I don't think anyone really knows what's going on with Calvin Ridley right now. And then, as if that wasn't confusing enough for the Jags, they then decided to trade for Mac Jones. So, I don't know what they're up
I'm
to.
glad you brought that up. Mac Jones, who was a Pro Bowler a few seasons ago, just got traded for a 6th-round
Tyler
pick.
Huntley was a Pro Bowler. It doesn't mean anything anymore.
I find it entertaining that Mac Jones has been traded for a 6th-round pick to be a backup quarterback. We'll say. I mean, it's just interesting to go from what he was to what he is. But in do you think it's too harsh on Mac Jones? Like,
No,
you think it was Mac Jones?
he was very bad.
But
Like that, the Patriots have no receivers. I'll give you that, but well, he's playing at the same level as Bailey Zappi. Like they were just two clones of each other out there, and Mac Jones they just invested more in. So
But with all the things that were going around in New England, especially last season, you don't give Mac Jones another shot anywhere to be a quarter. I mean, name a team. In what team is he a starting quarterback at?
not the Panthers, not the Saints, not the Falcons anymore with Kirk Cousins. Maybe the Giants if you don't love Daniel Jones, I would take Sam Howell over him, and then they're gonna probably take Drake May. So
Without the draft, just active. Like, put him on a team. Where does he start, if anywhere?
Tennessee,
Okay.
because I think you want to give Will Levis some more time to develop. With no Kirk Cousins right now, he would start in Minnesota.
But that's just because you don't have a quarterback.
Well, that's what it takes for Mac Jones to start a team that doesn't have a quarterback.
All right. All right. So you're not giving him a second chance, really. Anyway.
No, I'm not. He's terrible.
Okay. I would.
He's a noodle for an arm. He does not have an NFL arm.
Well, we'll see. I mean, he's probably going to be a career backup at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
He's already started. He's backing up for Trevor Lawrence. He's probably not going to get a whole lot of time unless Trevor Lawrence is hurt or whatever, which we could see. But yeah. Let's see. Let's go to tight ends. Really nothing super fun.
Good re-sign for Houston though, keeping Dalton Schultz in town 3 years, 12 million a year, just solid retention. This is a guy that's going to be a good safety blanket for C.J. Stroud that also offers some flexibility down the field. Then on the offensive line, one good signing, I think, in Jonah Jackson to the Rams, 3 years, $51 million. I like this a lot for the Rams, really shore up your interior, something that was a big problem last year. Then the other interior offensive line signing, the Carolina Panthers have chosen to pay former Miami Dolphin Robert Hunt $20 million a year for 5 years. This is a horrendous overpay, although some could say they have the cap and they want to protect Bryce Young at all costs. But for me, if you think you're going to be good anytime in the next 5 years, how is this contract not going to debilitate you down the line if you keep trying to... brain dead from the Panthers, in my opinion, on that one. Then finally, on the defensive line, two very big re-signings as Justin Madubuike will be staying in Baltimore with the Ravens on a 4-year, $98 million deal. Really had a massive breakout this season, was probably a top 3 interior defensive lineman in football this past season, was a big part of that Ravens defense. Very disruptive, very good rushing the passer as well. Really developed in that regard. And then a guy who I think currently is the most disruptive interior pass rusher in football. I think he has overtaken Aaron Donald for that right now, and that is Chris Jones, who signed a 5-year extension to stay in Kansas City through his age 34 season at $31.75 million a year with $95 million guaranteed. So I think that's a great signing for both sides. The Chiefs also have a opt out before the last year of that deal, which I think is great for them. I think
Mm-hmm.
this is just the perfect
Especially as
gift
he
for both
gets
sides.
older. Um, Another kind of big contract that shocks some people is Christian Wilkins, the
More
Raiders.
interior D lineman.
Yeah, so I mean they're getting paid this offseason,
They
which
are
is good to see for that class of
almost 85 mil guaranteed for Wilkins as well. And as a former Chargers fan, this is classic Tom Telesco maybe spending a bunch of money on a position that maybe you didn't need as much. I know they needed interior defensive line, but you have Max Crosby, Tyreek Wilson as your edge rushers. I feel like your front seven is in a much better condition than, say, your secondary or your offensive line. So I maybe would have spent the money on that. I still don't get why Miami didn't franchise tag him. It
that
confuses me the
blows.
most.
Saw that I was like, what?
Why would you not
Really?
want like a
Where's
franchise
where's
tag
their
by
plan to replace
definition
him?
is you don't have to work around the cap for a franchise tag. I don't know why they did that at all, but anyway, I guess the Raiders get a good upgrade on the interior. I don't know how much that moves the needle for them overall, which is why the signing kind of confuses me, but we'll see what happens. You never a good front and a good defensive line is always going to benefit you massively in a football game. So it's possible that that helps them out, but I just don't think it moves the needle on this team a ton for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. But it started out to be super exciting for agency stint. We can expect that in the coming days and weeks. We'll have more for y'all next week on any updates, if any. Maybe we'll stall out like baseball does